Rome is a city where it feels like you can really just step back in time, and some of the transit is no exception. Let's explore the Centocelle Line, an old narrow-gauge urban tram railway that is easily among my favorite transit lines that I've ever ridden. Howdy y'all, I'm in Rome right outside of Centocelle metro station on Line C. I'm going to be riding the Rome-Giardinetti to Centocelle line. It's a tram train thing. I don't really know what to expect. I was just kind of told in the comments to ride it, and I've been aware of this thing for a while. Should be interesting, so gotta walk down to the station. Well, we're just walking along the road. We found the tram depot. Very cool, very cool. They got some cool vehicles back there, but station's right there. We'll be getting on once we figure out how to get over there. So I guess in some ways, I mean, you could consider this a narrow gauge interurban that just Rome still has for some reason. Largely paralleled by Line C, but it does still have its own right of way. Well, there's the station and the tram, interurban train, whatever you want to call it. All right, so there's the train. Maybe we'll be able to make it, but you go down these like kind of not really well marked stairs, I guess, to get in there. I mean, it is like accessible for vision impaired. I mean, I guess like, I think that's good, but like this is an interesting station for sure. All right, to the train, and they have fare gates here. Wow, I really didn't know what to expect. I have no idea what to really, I guess, expect from going into this. So they have signs to Giardinetti, which that line, it no longer goes that way. So I guess you got to board from the Laziali side, which is right next to Rome-Giardinetti, which is their main railway station. Okay, perfect. We have a train. So we'll get on. Nobody else is on here, so awesome. Hopefully this will be a cool ride. Also, that is an old map. It shows Line C of the metro only going to Lodi, and you having to change to this line to get to Line A, which is not how this works anymore. So what's interesting is I guess on maps it's still called the Giardinetti Line, which is weird because it goes from Termini, which is Laziali, all the way over here to Centocelle, but the line to Giardinetti is closed. So trains no longer go that far. They just stop here, which is, I guess, roughly like maybe a third to a half, but somewhere between a third and a half of the stations are closed. So this is interesting. They do have ticket and I guess card readers on board, but this station has fare gates, so I'm wondering if some of the intermediate ones just don't have fare gates. I think that would make sense probably. So we're definitely on one of their newer vehicles, which doesn't look as historic, which is, you know, a bit disappointing, but we will be getting off at Porto Maggiore and getting a next train probably, so we'll see. We'll see if we see any historic stuff on the line. Oh, well that's definitely an older train. All right, the doors just slammed shut. Oh, here we go. Only ones on this whole train. The Centocelle Line, as it is now called on Rome Transit Agency ATAC's website, where it's also referred to as the Termini-Centocelle Line, has 12 stops and runs 5.4 kilometers or 3.34 miles from Laziali Station, right next to Rome Termini, the city's main railway station, to Centocelle, where I boarded. Thankfully, our Rome Transit Day Pass works on this line as well, as the Centocelle Line is integrated into ATAC's fare system. So, as you can already tell, this line is pretty old. From the rolling stock to the infrastructure, everything just seems a little bit outdated. But that makes it more fun in a way. Our first train, number 834, is a Firema T66 from 1999, one of the newest trains on the line, and it might look somewhat familiar if you've explored the transit of Rome before, or if you're a longer-term viewer of the channel. Firema also made the E84 trains in use on the Rome-Viterbo suburban line. Sure, one's a heavy rail vehicle and one's a light rail urban railway train, but the cabins of the cars bear some similarities. But focusing fully back on the Centocelle line, the line itself originally opened in 1916. And for much of its existence, the line was part of a larger urban, suburban, and interurban train system, at first the Rome-Fiuggi-Alatri-Frosinone Railway. Sincere apologies for my pronunciation, I unfortunately don't speak Italian. This rail system was as large as 137 kilometers, or 85.1 miles in length, with multiple branch lines reaching this maximum length in 1927. From this point forward, the system generally shrank in size because of a few factors, including damage from World War II, riders migrating over to bus lines, and even landslides on the line, among other factors. So let's start at the network's peak in 1927, and no, this is not going to cover the entire history of the line, so if I leave some things out, I do apologize. Again, starting with 1927, the main line goes from Rome all the way to Frosinone. Various branch lines exist. 1935, the main line closes between Fiughi and Frosinone. Buses replace trains. 1936, the Guarcino branch connected to this part of the main line also closes. 1937, train service on the line within Frosinone ends. 1940, the main line beyond Fiughi reopens to Alatri. The main line from Centocelle to Grottecelloni is double-tracked. 1944, the branch line to Frascati closes permanently because of damage from World War II. 1950, the western end of the main line is truncated with service ending at Roma-Laziali now instead of directly at Roma-Termini. 1960, train service on branches in Fiughi ends. 1978, the entire main line beyond Fiughi closes again, this time for good. April 1980, train service stops between Palestrina and Genazzano due to a landslide. Connection between the two sections of the line is possible by bus. October 1980, train service on this section resumes. 1981, the main line is closed between Cave and Fiughi for track replacement. 1982, the newest branch of the line, the one from Centocelle to Piazza dei Mirti, which was opened in 1927, closes permanently. Also, a second landslide prevents the main line to Fiughi from reopening for now. 1983, the main line to Fiughi reopens. March 1983, the main line between Cave and Fiughi closes again, this time permanently. December 1983, a third landslide closes the line beyond San Cesario. 1984, a flood interrupts service between Pantano and San Cesario, causing trains to terminate at Pantano. The branch line to Zagarolo Scalo closes, which hadn't seen passenger traffic since 1976, but still had some freight traffic up until this time. Yes, this small interurban also had freight trains. 1996, the main line, well, I guess now it's the only line, beyond Grottecelloni, closes to be refurbished and double-tracked. 1999, the main line from Torrenova to Grottecelloni closes to be refurbished. 2005, the main line reopens to Grottecelloni. 2006, the main line reopens to Pantano. 2008, all train service is truncated to Giardinetti for the conversion of the section of the line to Pantano to become part of the Line C of the Rome Metro. 2009, plans are made to convert the now Rome to Giardinetti line into a normal tram. It's currently entirely incompatible with Rome's normal tram vehicles, as the old interurban runs on 1650-volt direct current electrification on narrow-gauge 950mm track compared to Rome's regular tram network with 1445mm track gauge and 600-volt direct current electrification. 2015. All train service is truncated to Centocelle due to Metro Line C serving areas beyond this. This seems to actually be a detriment to the area despite the presence of Line C, as the old interurban main line was more convenient to certain areas, not to mention the one-seat ride to Roma Termini that it provided. In the 2020s, the entire line is turned over to the city after having various operators, and names for that matter, throughout its long history. Today the line is operated by ATAC, Rome's main transit agency. The line was supposed to close in 2023 for its conversion into a regular tramway, but it's still here. May 2025. The footage in this video was filmed. Signs for Giardinetti were very much still posted and clearly visible, though there were also clear signs stating that all trains were terminating at Centocelle. 2026. The Centocelle line is set to close for its conversion into a regular tramway. So that leaves us with the line we have today, a short interurban-like remnant of a formerly larger system. But I'd guess the remaining portion of the line nonetheless maintains much of the charm it had all those years ago. And once we eventually get off at Turpin to wait for the train behind ours, some of that older charm will become a little bit more evident as the motor vehicles go by. Shortly after getting off, a Centocelle-bound train passes us on the other track. and it happens to be among the oldest trains in service on the line, an STEFER Group 420 train, number 423, built in 1926. Yes, 1926. This thing is a century old this year. We board the next Laziali-bound train, number 110, another STEFER train built in 1941. Both of these trains were refurbished and modernized in the early 1960s, so they don't necessarily feel as old as they actually are. Regardless, I think the older rolling stock is much cooler than the newer train we just rode.
So no one really got on at our station at Centocelle, probably because if you're going all the way into the city, you're going to take the metro. It's faster, more convenient, probably. Objectively, a nicer service. This is more fun for, the transit enthusiasts. The station, covered in trash on the tracks, it's really unfortunate. But it is getting some use in between where it meets Line C to Rome-Giardinetti, where the other end of the line is. So, it's pretty dense, pretty good for an interurban route. Because it's an intermediate stop, we have to do that. So this one's got maps as well. The interior's definitely been redone. These are modern seats, modern flooring. The doors are pretty old though, and these are not walk-through. So there's a completely separate detached train in front of us where the driver is. At least a detached train car, and then they can drive the other way as well. I'm assuming, I don't think there's a turning loop or a Y down at Laziali. So there is, I believe, a Y at Centocelle, however.
We eventually leave the median of the road and enter a right-of-way alongside it. Not long after, we end up paralleling mainline tracks that lead to Rome-Giardinetti.
So there's an actual rail line right there, I assume. It's one of the lines into Rome-Giardinetti. I believe that is an aqueduct. Very cool. Also, these platforms are tiny. So there's the track, and that's the entire platform.
We soon come to a very narrow part of the line after Ponte Castellino, where there isn't enough space for two tracks to run parallel to each other, and instead of simply making this section of the line single-tracked, the two tracks overlap as a section of gauntlet track, that is, where each train still stays on its own rails in this area where normally only one track could exist. Essentially, it's two overlapping tracks. As such, only one train can occupy this narrow section of the line at a time, but I think it's a pretty practical solution to the issue of a lack of space. After diving under the mainline tracks, we approach Piazza di Portamaggiore, easily my favorite spot on this whole line, and quite possibly the entire transit network of Rome. You'll see why.
So we stay on our little urban, our interurban tracks here. Mainline trains up there, and then we are just on our little narrow gauge, whatever you call this. And I guess we're gonna cross the regular tram tracks.
Yes, this plaza has an ancient gate and aqueduct. This is the Porta Maggiore, which dates back to 52 AD. It serves as the centerpiece of this large plaza, and at one point was part of a larger aqueduct, the Aqua Claudia, further remnants of which can be seen around this plaza. While the main gate is closed off, the Centocelle Line and Rome's wider gauge trams, which intersected at various points in the plaza, just travel right through these ancient structures. And after a life of transporting water in Rome, some of these aqueduct structures continue serving the city as 2,000-year-old catenary wire gantries for the tram lines. This intersection is truly fascinating and is easily one of the best intersections for viewing transit vehicles I've ever visited. There are mainline trains, regular trams, and the Centocelle Line, all visible from this intersection. So if you are at all interested in trains or transit, which there's a good chance you are if you're watching this channel, I highly recommend you visit this intersection if you're ever in Rome. Or, come here for the aqueduct too. It's well worth the short trip from Rome to Termini. And I know I'm voicing a lot of this over, but don't worry, because I've already uploaded some of my footage from around the Porta Maggiore as a separate bonus video on the channel. Consider it a Tramurai gift to you all, so go check that out after this video if you want to see more from this really neat spot in Rome. After rail fanning quite a few trams, we continue on the Centocelle Line up to the final stop of Laziali, right outside Rome Termini. Eventually, we reach the line's terminus at Laziali, where interestingly enough, there are a few platforms and still signs for Giardinetti, which have been inaccurate for about a decade. Very much similar to the Norristown high-speed line outside of Philadelphia. They have fare gates at the end stations, and the middle ones are just, you validate your fare when you get on board. So yeah, all trains, despite the sign saying Giardinetti, only go to Centocelle, which is unfortunate, but the metro now covers Centocelle to Giardinetti, so it's kind of a redundant line, although it is cool to have like a one-seat ride to here, which Line C does not provide. Alright, so this is Roma Termini. This is the main railway station for the city. It kind of drops you on the side of it, but I mean, it's convenient enough. Also, we're not in the UK, but this road drives on the left for whatever reason. Alright, so the Laziali to Centocelle Line, amazing. One of my favorite train lines I've ever ridden. Yeah, pretty good. Good impression. Weirdly enough, I didn't realize it until I got off. Trains are on the right. Normally you're like, that's not weird. This is normal for, trains in right-hand driving countries to drive on the right. Sure. Not in Italy. Trains go on the left here, even though cars are on the right. So I'm like, okay, well, it's more of a tram sort of line, and trams are on the right here because you have to, fit with car traffic. But this thing has its own right-of-way. It's just in the middle of the street. Like, it has its own tracks. It does not share lanes with cars. So it could run on the left. It just doesn't. So, a little oddity about an already odd line. Now that we've taken the whole line, or what's left of it, rather, I have to provide a disclaimer. I like old transit. A lot. Old trains, outdated infrastructure, and the like. I love it. So it's always hard for me to separate being an advocate for good transit from liking old lines like the Laziali to Centocelle Line, that don't even come close to meeting many of the standards we'd see on modern transit lines. So to see the fully automated Metro Line C replace much of what is now the Centocelle Line is both a win and a loss in my mind. Sure, we gain good, high-capacity, clean, accessible transit, but we lose part of one of the most charming train lines I've ever ridden. Obviously, as a transit advocate, I'm glad Line C exists. It's a really nice service. But it just doesn't have the same quirkiness and old-timiness of the line it replaced. So I don't know. I guess I'm just glad that Rome has a little bit of both. As for the Centocelle Line, I had a great time exploring it. While it wasn't the dirtiest transit experience we had in Rome, that title belongs to the Rome-Giardinetti Line, the Centocelle Line wasn't the cleanest. The vehicles seemed mostly clean, but some of the track bed and stations definitely needed a cleaning or a little bit of sprucing up. And the whole line does look pretty run down. It's probably not a service that would appeal to your average visitor to the city of Rome. However, as I explained, I actually really liked the old age of the line. I legitimately enjoyed seeing what riding along such a relic of the past is like. It felt like I was experiencing a little bit of transit history that somehow ended up surviving into the 21st century, mostly because that's exactly what the Centocelle Line is. The remaining section hasn't been converted into a metro or a regular tram line, but it meshes really well with the urban density around it nonetheless. And as for the scenery, the Centocelle Line can really give you a glimpse into what non-touristy Rome looks like. It's just such an interesting city. But there's just something about the Centocelle Line and the old trains and the ancient aqueducts and the old infrastructure that I just can't get enough of. As crazy as this may or may not sound, the Centocelle Line is one of my top 5 favorite transit lines I've ever ridden. Like, ever. I'd ride it again and again, and I really just don't have enough good words to describe how much I like it. So go take a trip on the Centocelle Line if you get a chance, and do it soon. The line may not be around for much longer, as there is a plan to convert it into a modern light rail line starting in 2026. Now, this conversion was supposed to be finished already, but the Centocelle Line is still around, so depending on how many more delays there are in the conversion project timeline, the current Centocelle Line might not have much time left. But if you ride the line now, you can enjoy a piece of Rome's history that isn't so ancient, except for the glaring exception that is the Porta Maggiore. That very much is ancient history. Oh, and if you were watching closely, you'll note this is not the first version of the video I posted. The originally released version had some key errors and omissions, and it was just worth redoing those sections of the video. And this was all spurred on by a very helpful comment on the now unlisted video, so thanks for catching my mistakes early on. As it turns out, doing research on transit lines like this, for which there aren't too many adequate sources online in English, is actually really hard. I ran into the same problem when researching the Rome-Giardinetti Line, though finding the information I needed for the Centocelle Line was a much more tedious and long process. So I'm relying more on a mix of translated Italian Wikipedia pages way more than I would like to, as well as on both German and English Wikipedia pages, but those were really the only concise accounts of the line that I could find that were usable in a timely manner for the research of this video. This all being said, if there are still historical or rolling stock errors in this newer version of the video, I very much do apologize. I don't like saying that Wikipedia articles were the best I could do, but sometimes for things as obscure as this, there really aren't too many other options. Plus, the other options I did find seem to match up pretty well with this combination of Wikipedia pages, so I'm hoping this is a much needed improvement over the video I had up before. All corrections, if necessary, will be posted in the description. Anyways, go ride the Centocelle Line before it closes, and if I hear that the line does close in the near future, because that could be very soon, I will also put this in the video description. Yes, I'm sad about it already, but hopefully some of the trains can find their way into a museum somewhere. Or, I don't know, just turn the whole line into a museum and reactivate old sections. That's a pretty cool idea too. Anyways, with all that being said, as with every video, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my second full-length video for Tramuary. There is more tram content on the way before the month ends, so like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more like this. And I'll see y'all in the next one.